We are deep into this keel build project. By the end of this episode, you'll see the actual shape of both the fin and the bulb. And Evan, the naval architect, is back to discuss my favorite feature of our keel.
A couple weeks ago, we laid up and vacuum bagged the plywood mold. Now it's time to use Brandon's 5-axis CNC machine to do the final cut on the mold. The 3-axis machine was able to cut out the rough shape into each layer of plywood, where the 5-axis can be programmed to cut out the actual shape of the bulb into the plywood block. While we watch the machine cut out the precise bulb shape, let's hear from Evan about one of my favorite features of our new keel.
This was a very clever idea that you had, but please explain how the bulb is connected to the steel fin.
A lot of bulbs are just bolted on.
Yeah.
Right? Either bolts through the bottom of the bulb or horizontal bolts through the bulb, which works fine, right? Nothing wrong with it. But there are other bulbs where they have cast the fin right into the bulb, where there's holes cut out in the steel fin or bronze fin. And a lot of production boats have done this quite successfully. It's not a particularly new technique. It does away with more bolted connections, right?
Yeah.
So a bit more reliable, I guess I'd say, in terms of, things to go wrong.
And less complex casting.
Yes, well, yeah, you've got to make sure it's all, the bulb casting is all accurate.
Yeah.
And your fin is in the right spot, but I think that's pretty straightforward with the jig you've come up with. Basically, yeah, the bottom of the fin protrudes into the casting, and it has holes cut out and some tabs on the bottom of the steel fin that all that weight is going to be transferred into the steel fin, right? And where the joint is, yeah, you've got two dissimilar metals, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. A few layers of fiberglass tape with a semi-flexible epoxy, something that has a little bit of flexibility for the inevitable tiny movements that happen between them. Both get painted, still get painted in the normal way with protective paints and then anti-fouling. It is a proven technique, right?
Yeah.
It's not brand new.
Yeah, it's maintenance free.
Yeah, it's pretty maintenance free. Yeah, you don't have to worry about bolts failing or things like that, which I kind of like. I don't have to worry about bolts that are embedded somewhere under a layer of putty and so on, and they're not corroding away inside something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, like I said, that's my favorite aspect of the whole thing. And it's making for an even more unique project.
Brandon was explaining that this was a more difficult cut because the shape of the bulb doesn't lend itself well to the cutting head's ability to maneuver inside the mold. The bottom of the bulb is really flat, so it's hard for the cutting head to get inside the bulb to make the cut, but he made it work.
We've finished machining most of the surfaces on the molds, but right now we need to true up this surface. So this stack was glued up on the table and it's not necessarily square. And we want these molds to sit upright, square, so that they don't tilt against each other. So right now I'm going to take the machine, I'm going to surface this whole thing. So it has to go to full 5-axis and tilt. Yeah, let's start it up and see how we're doing. that looks good. We'll just let it run. It's gonna take probably about 20 minutes to surface this edge, and then we'll flip over and we'll do the other side.
Once the finishing cut was done, we moved them to the other side of the shop where I can do the finish work on the molds.
You got 6 inches. Okay. 3 inches, 2 inches. Look at that.
Yeah,
I like how you can
look
see
good.
the topography of it with the with all the plywood layers, the veneers. That's so cool.
So, it's really nice plywood. Yeah, it looks like we grew it out of a tree. It's like, oh yeah.
It's a very organic shape.
Yeah, it took 300 years, but it was
Yes,
worth it.
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Forklift.
Okay, we're switching gears from the bulb mold to the fin.
No, it's totally open like that.
It goes through, but it's going to go through. If we don't cut it to 16 the other direction, it's going to go through the back. It's not going to go through the back properly, is it?
And that's why he just says to trim it off to this angle, to this shape angle. 'Cause you can
So
see
let's
that's-
just make it long.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would work too.
Instead of guessing at what we're cutting that angle at until
Yeah.
we get there.
So yeah, we can make it 7 feet.
Or 6'9". I mean,
Yeah.
we're not probably not a half-inch change.
Right.
So just make it long, 6'9", from the after edge of the 16-degree cut.
Forward edge.
Oh, right to at the forward edge.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Last week we finished building the first top layer of the keel, including welding in the webs. This week we're installing the leading and trailing edges of the fin, keel, and most of the interior structure. Very soon you'll see the fin take shape.
Okay, we're locked in.
This morning, Bill and I got a lot done. The leading edge, which is a 2-inch solid round bar, and then the trailing edge, which is a 4-inch by 1/4-inch piece of flat stock, in place. They're tacked in place. We like where they're at. What's the next step, Bill?
Well, the next step should be to put these intermediate pieces in to their placements to go to the next level, and they go in at the angle related to the leading edge, and when they're all tacked in place, we can sit the longitudinal shaped
The next rib?
rib on top of them, and so that would get us to this level.
Right. And then from
We
there,
have one more level
we
to
can
go.
go one more level up. And so what's crazy is you can now see how big this thing is. It's like 7 feet tall, 7 feet wide. It's a big monster. So
Yeah.
we made a lot of progress, and I think this this armature or the interior structure feels like it's going to go together pretty quickly.
Yeah, it is. It was because it was cut from the CAD file from a drawing, it's precise.
Right.
And so we just have to line everything up, basically. There's no cutting to do other than detailing.
Right. Yeah. So pretty soon you'll see the whole keel take shape.
Is it fair to say easy peasy?
No, that's premature. This is the center line. This is the center. Or no, a quarter inch off.
We installed 2 diagonal webs and then decided to fit the next rib in place. This way the rib can help position the rest of the webs.
So they gave us a 5/16 trailing edge instead of a quarter inch, and so we got to grind out our little fork in here to make it fit.
We are constantly checking that the ribs are level to earth because they're designed to be square to the bolts. We're constantly checking all the parts for correct angles, fairness, and squareness to earth.
We've talked a lot about the inside of the keel.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna
right.
be hollow.
Yeah, and people are worried oh no, it's going to corrode inside, right?
Uh-huh.
First of all, when the steel comes from the place that cut it, they put on what's called a weldable steel primer,
Yep.
right? Which is it's a paint that is a corrosion resistant paint, but you can also weld through that, right? So the welder can, this stops it from rusting initially. Okay, you weld up your keel, you leave the outside skin off first, then you spray and brush or whatever the inside of the skin with a couple more layers of corrosion resistant coating.
Yeah, we're gonna use epoxy primer.
Yeah, and epoxy. Yeah, one of your international products.
Yep.
Okay, then you put your outside skin, which you've also painted, except where those slots are. Tape those off with a little bit of masking tape. Take those off. You weld it so 99% of it will be coated with multiple layers of protective paint. Right? Once that's all done, the keel will have like a little pressure threaded port where you put in your air compressor and add a couple of psi and let it sit overnight, just like you did the ballast tanks, right? And see if there's any leaks.
Right.
And there will be leaks.
Yeah.
And then you just then you weld up the pinholes where soap bubble test, right?
Yeah.
And then once that's all good, it's completely airtight, watertight. Right?
Cool.
And when you haul the boat out for annual or every year or two, when you haul the boat out, you can do the exact same thing. You pressure test it. You open the plug at the bottom. If water pours out, then you've got a bit of a problem, and you want to find out, gee, I must have hit something and I've got a big hole. But you can pressure test it then, right? You can do exactly the same with a bicycle pump.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't need a compressor. You can the volume's not huge. Do it with a bicycle pump and a little pressure gauge. And hey, does it still hold pressure? Right. And externally you weld zincs on to the skin, right, to protect it.
If there's any twist or change, I'll spot the 4 corners and we're done. Good.
While Bill is taking care of some welding, I'm going to head over to Brandon's shop. The mold is been cut, but it needs to be sanded down just to get rid of all the fuzzies, get rid of some little excess spots that the CNC machine didn't get, and then I can start coating it with its fire resistant coating.
More sanding?
Yes, honey. You want to come?
No. I have to watch the baby
Okay.
and edit and, all the other things.
Okay.
But have so much fun.
Thank you.
The next step is to paint these with our fire-resistant coatings.
All right, yesterday we started and got all these. These are the webs that are below the bolts that are connecting the skins to each other, as well as the ribs. So this is all this internal structure of the keel, and Bill is about to tack in. It's the third layer of webs. Then we'll have one more rib on top of this, and then the last layer of ribs on top of that. Yeah, making tons and tons of progress here. It's very exciting. You want me to hold this at the right angle?
You could push it a little bit so that, but
Yeah. There you go.
we're going to be able to adjust that other end after we get this tack.
Okay.
Got to turn the machine on. We turned it off. Okay. You ready?
Hit it.
Okay, that one's tacked in.
Bill made these little jigs to line up the middle webs to the top webs. They are all in line with each other from the bolts down. Once the third layer of webs were in, we fit the third rib. Now the keel fin was really taking shape.
It seems like this Keel project you're working on with us is small beans compared to some of the projects you've worked on. Is this a smaller project for you?
Yeah, I don't know if size matters.
Right.
Because it's still an interesting project, regardless of how big, and new and interesting details that you have to solve problems along the way.
That's what's striking me the most is you and Matt are just constantly solving little problems and little challenges that and we're not capturing it all on film because it would be hours and hours and hours, but there's a little challenge embedded in each project here.
Yeah, it's very challenging for me especially.
It must be fun to have Bill to usually you're figuring this all out on your own, and now you have a partner to talk it all through with.
Yeah, totally. I'm following Bill's lead. He's the pro here, and it's I'm learning a lot.
But it's still a community genius kind of thing, you got two people to bounce ideas off of and say, oh, well, that didn't work. What do we do now?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, we've got one more of these web pieces to go on this third level. And then we'll be done this with this level, and we can move on to the last section.
There, pretty much. Good there. Check your side.
Very good.
1/4 inch. Angle there.
Nice.
The interior structure of the fin is not done yet. There are a few small but critical pieces that need to get welded in, and then we'll weld on the outside skins. The foil section of the keel is the cross-sectional shape that looks like an airplane wing. There are many foil shapes to choose from, so we asked Evan about the basics of keel section shape and why ours looks the way it does.
There's different sort of foil sections we can talk about. Maybe that's a good thing for a picture. Okay, so when we're designing keels, one of the choices you have as a designer is what cross section, what wing profile am I going to use? And if we're doing like a racing boat, it's going to be skinny to reduce drag, and it's going to be a shape that has sort of almost a hollow back here. Right? And the fat part of it is going to be further back. Okay? This has really good lift to drag characteristics. And if I'm going to draw you a little curve here, this is what we call a lift to drag diagram. And, or sorry, we'll change that. This is sort of the shape called a drag bucket. And this is angle of attack. Here's 0, angle of attack. So here's my angle, plus or minus whatever direction. If you operate this keel in this very narrow range, it has this very low drag coefficient, right? A few degrees. As you get out here, that drag starts going up very fast. So this would be like, you know, this type of, might be a 63010 is a NACA designation for a laminar flow foil that has this drag bucket. Really good at small angles of attack. The problem is it doesn't stay laminar if it's dirty. So cruising boats that don't have the luxury of someone diving on the boat every morning before the regatta, cleaning the algae off the keel, will be operating up here in the draggy region. The other alternative for most reasonable cruising boats is sort of the NACA 4 series, 4-digit series. And the fat part sort of around 30%, somewhere in there, 30% back from the leading edge. So this might be the 0015, for instance. So the 15 refers to what percentage of the thickness compared to the length, 15%. And this is a very forgiving shape, right? It's not what you'd call sophisticated in terms of its drag coefficient or anything like that. But the nice thing about it, it has a sort of a more gentle drag to lift angle. So again, this is my angle, and this is the coefficient of drag. So it doesn't have this little bucket, reduced region, but what it does mean is when it gets a little higher up here, it doesn't hurt it. It also is not sensitive to surface finish. So if you've got some algae growing on it, it still is quite happy. This one, because it's a laminar flow section, it will trip. And what will happen is you'll have turbulence all along it if it's all algae prone. And then you'll be operating way up here. It'll all be draggy. So if you're a cruising boat designer, picking a forgiving section that you know isn't going to be bothered by a dirty foil, picking a fattish foil that is a little more forgiving of angle, right? It's this one would be like a 10% one, so it's skinnier. This dimension here is only like 10% of the foil. This is not a very forgiving foil. Great if you're day sailing and you got someone to clean the hull, but we picked something like this. I don't remember the exact section. It was probably a little bit less than this, but a NACA 00 series is a nice forgiving foil, and we picked that sort of shape.
Cool.